I turned to my girlfriend and said, "So this is the ex you've been texting, right? The one you've been secretly meeting?" The kitchen went silent. She stammered, "It's not what it looks like." I, 27M, grew up in a small town where everybody liked to poke their noses into everyone else's business. When I was 25, I reconnected with someone from high school. She'd also moved to the city, and we ran into each other at a mutual friend's birthday. We started hanging out, grabbing coffee, watching late-night movies, the usual dating stuff. I'll just refer to her as my girlfriend or ex now, because, well, that's what she turned into eventually. At first, things were pretty good. She seemed down to earth, not too caught up in drama. She listened when I rambled about my long shifts, and she looked genuinely happy whenever we spent time together. A year passed, and we settled into a comfortable routine. We had minor arguments sometimes, but it felt normal. Then, out of nowhere, I started noticing odd changes. She got super protective of her phone. If I asked, "Who you texting?" she'd claim it was a friend and then tuck her phone away. She'd be on social media late at night, and if I glanced over, she'd angle the screen away. It made me uneasy, but I didn't want to come off as the paranoid boyfriend. So I told myself to relax. People need their privacy, right? Things got sketchier when she began mentioning her ex-boyfriend. She'd drop casual stories about him, how he used to be so sweet, how they watched goofy movies together, all sorts of little details. I wasn't thrilled. But I also didn't want to be that guy who freaks out whenever an ex is mentioned. Still, there was something in the way she talked about him that made me suspicious. It wasn't just a memory popping up randomly. It sounded more like she was nostalgic for something she missed. Around this time, she'd disappear for girls' nights or friend hangouts, but I'd never get a clear invitation to join. That alone wasn't a huge red flag, but it kept happening, and her excuses started sounding more and more forced. One night I was dozing off in bed while she was texting at 2 a.m. I leaned over to see what had her so engaged, and she immediately tilted the screen away. If it was really just her friend gossiping, why hide it from me? My father, who I guess has a sharper radar for this stuff, visited one weekend and whispered to me that something felt off about her. He didn't give me specifics, just one of those old school warnings, watch your back. I shrugged it off, hoping he was overthinking. But the next day a buddy of mine texted me saying he'd seen my girlfriend at a coffee shop hugging some guy who wasn't me. She told him it was just her ex, and they were catching up. That's when the bells in my head really started ringing. I tried not to flip out, but I needed to know what was going on. I decided to observe her more closely instead of confronting her right away. If I came at her with accusations, she might just deny everything and hide it better. So I played it cool, but inside I was wound up tight. She'd started acting distant, coming home late, barely talking, and brushing off my attempts at normal conversation. I'd say, "How was your day?" and she'd just say fine while scrolling on her phone. I had a friend who was more tech savvy than me. I asked if he could find any suspicious chats on her social media or phone records without doing anything illegal. He managed to see bits of chat logs indicating she was talking to her ex, sending miss you messages. He didn't have everything, but what he did see was enough to confirm they were way more than just friends. I felt my stomach drop. But I still chose not to confront her. I wanted her to think she was safe so she'd keep making mistakes. A mutual acquaintance, actually her co-worker, noticed something was up too. The co-worker saw my girlfriend leave during lunch breaks, meet someone outside, and come back giggling or glowing. I asked the co-worker to stay quiet and only let me know if anything big happened. I didn't want her risking her job for me, so I told her not to snoop, just to keep an eye out. Then my girlfriend pulled the classic, "I went to visit a friend in another town for the weekend" line. My friend and her circle spilled that my girlfriend had asked for suggestions about a romantic getaway near a lake. It didn't take a genius to figure out who she planned to go with. I kept a neutral face, wished her a safe trip, and told her to text me when she got there. That weekend my father came by again. I finally told him everything, feeling embarrassed that he'd probably been right all along. He got real serious and said, "Son, don't let her twist this on you. Get your proof, then confront her." So I waited. She came back Sunday night looking sunburned, even though she claimed they'd barely stepped outside because her friend was sick. I glanced at her arms and thought, "Sure looks like you spent plenty of time in the sun." While she was in the shower, I snooped through her bag. Yeah, not my proudest moment, but I was desperate. I found a fancy restaurant receipt dated the previous day. It was a place she'd once hinted she wanted to go with me, but apparently she decided her ex should take her there first. I felt a mix of anger and humiliation, but I put the receipt back and acted like I'd seen nothing. Over the next couple of days she kept texting like crazy, sometimes smiling at her phone. It was torture to pretend I didn't notice. I wanted to blow up, but a part of me wanted everything to come out at once, in front of people who mattered. I called a friend from my old neighborhood, who worked as a private investigator. I didn't want a full-blown case, just some tips on how to gather evidence without crossing legal lines. He advised me to note dates, times, and anything physical I could use later if she tried to lie or blame me. So I started a small journal, writing down when she went out, whom she claimed she was with, and what I suspected she was actually doing. Then she came to me asking to borrow money. She was vague about why she needed it, just saying it was personal stuff. The cynic in me thought maybe she needed cash for another secret trip or something for her ex. I told her I was strapped for funds, half expecting a fight. She looked annoyed and said, "Wow, okay, I see how it is," then to drop the subject. I realized her entitlement was off the charts. She was cheating and still wanted me to cover her expenses. To make matters worse, her ex somehow got my number and started sending snarky messages, telling me I should treat her better or I'd lose her. It was like he was rubbing it in my face. I nearly snapped, but I didn't respond. I just saved every message he sent. The moment for a big confrontation came sooner than I expected. She decided to throw me a birthday party at our apartment, probably to look like a doting girlfriend in front of friends and family. My father and mother came early to help set up, along with a few buddies, including one who's off-duty law enforcement. My father kept glancing at me like, "Is tonight the night?" I gave a small nod. I wanted to expose her right where she felt most confident. As guests started arriving, everything seemed normal, people chatting, snacking on chips, making small talk. My girlfriend was being all bubbly, but I could tell she was faking it. She kept checking her phone and sneaking off to the hallway. I followed quietly once and heard her whispering, "Just wait a bit longer, I'll come get you soon." I had a feeling her ex was lurking around. Sure enough, my father quietly motioned me to look outside. There was the ex, pacing like a weirdo in the hallway. I stepped back, letting him think nobody saw him. Then I returned to the living room and waited. A few minutes later he tried to slip inside. My father, the co-worker, and I followed him into the kitchen. My girlfriend saw him and freaked out, trying to stand between us. The ex had this smug smirk, like he was proud of showing up uninvited to my birthday. He opened with some line about how he just wanted to wish me a happy birthday, like we were buddies. I stared him down and then turned to my girlfriend, saying, "So this is the ex you've been texting, right? The one you've been secretly meeting?" The kitchen went silent. She stuttered, "It's not what it looks like." He jumped in, "She told me you're controlling. She deserves better." He was obviously trying to get under my skin. I pulled out my phone and began showing screenshots of messages, the lakeside restaurant receipt, and even some notes about her sneaky weekend trips. The co-worker, who was also at the party, confirmed she'd seen them go out together during lunch breaks, that my girlfriend had asked her not to say anything. My girlfriend tried to keep lying, claiming it was just one lunch. But the ex tossed that aside, flat out saying, "Stop lying. You told me you were done with him." My father stepped forward and gave her this disappointed look. Meanwhile, a few guests were peeking into the kitchen, clearly confused about the drama unfolding. My girlfriend tried to rush up to me, tears in her eyes, swearing she was confused or manipulated. I shrugged her off and told her, "I'm done with your nonsense." The ex puffed out his chest, like he wanted a fight. But my off-duty law enforcement friend calmly told him to leave if he didn't want trouble. The ex huffed and left. My girlfriend stood there, eyes darting around, realizing nobody was going to defend her. Everyone had basically seen enough proof that she'd been lying the whole time. She still tried to get me to talk privately, but I told her to grab her stuff and get out. She begged for another chance, but I was too angry and too hurt to listen. My father gave me a nod, like he approved of how I was handling it. So, she went to our room, packed a small suitcase, and left right then and there. The party was obviously ruined, but some of my friends actually congratulated me for keeping my cool. I felt a sick sense of relief. In the days that followed, she bombarded me with texts and voicemails. She tried every angle: apologies, guilt trips, blaming me for her cheating. I blocked her everywhere. She even showed up at my workplace once, but my staff told her to leave or security would be called. I never let her pass the lobby. A week later, I got an old-fashioned letter in the mail. She wrote that she was sorry, that she never meant to hurt me, but also claimed she'd been confused. I tossed it without reading the whole thing. My father said I was better off. The ex pestered me too, sending messages from random numbers bragging that they were still together, telling me I was the loser. But then I heard through the grapevine that he messed around on her as well. And they ended up having a nasty breakup. Talk about karma. She apparently tried to contact some of my friends for financial help. But they all knew the real story by then, and told her to sort it out herself. My parents stuck by me. My mother, who's normally sweet and patient, was furious when she found out the full extent of the cheating. She offered to help me toss my ex's belongings onto the curb. But I'd already had her take most of her stuff. My father simply said, "I told you something was off," without rubbing it in too much. It was good knowing my family had my back. I've been focusing on myself ever since. I put more effort into my job, caught up with old friends, and started doing things I enjoy, like fishing or playing pickup basketball. It helped me forget about the drama. I haven't jumped into a new relationship yet because I'm not looking to repeat the same mistakes. I've realized how important it is to trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Looking back, I don't regret letting her think she was fooling me. If I freaked out too early, she might have twisted everything around or destroyed evidence. By waiting, I got all the proof I needed. Revealing it all at once, right at my own birthday party, was sweet payback. She had no excuses left, no way to play the victim. Seeing her ex scurry off was icing on the cake. I never thought I'd deal with a situation like that, where someone I cared about would lie straight to my face, bring another dude into my home, and still expect me to be a walking wallet. But people will do some messed up stuff when they think they won't get caught. If there's one thing I learned, it's that nobody has the right to treat you like you're worthless. If you suspect someone's playing games, gather your proof, confront them on your own terms, and don't let them weasel out of the consequences. That's basically how my girlfriend's sweet ex turned into her little secret fling, and how I set her up to crash and burn. She tried to make me look like a clueless doormat, but I made sure she was exposed in front of everyone who mattered to her. She walked out of my life the same night, and I've never looked back. It hurt, sure, but the satisfaction of shutting down her entire scheme was worth it. And it turns out her ex was just as bad as she was, so they destroyed each other anyway. I'm moving on now, and honestly I'm in a better headspace. I don't regret giving her enough rope to hang herself with, because if you're going to betray someone's trust, you deserve to face the music in a big public way. I just wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but hey, lesson learned. At least now, I know not to ignore that gut feeling when something seems too shady to be a coincidence. It was a rocky road, but I'm thankful I had the right people around me to back me up and keep me from losing my mind. Sometimes you have to go through something insane just to realize what you truly deserve in a relationship. Honesty, respect, and zero nonsense. And I plan on settling for nothing less from now on.